one thing I will tell you is if you ask the gender scholars, their solution for them is that, well, it's something with masculinity. We have to change boys' masculinity. And for years there were efforts. It was actually kind of sad. I mean, because the boys would not cooperate, but there were these massive efforts to make the boys play more like girls. The typical play of little girls is theatrical play or turn-taking games, playing school, playing house. Boys, it's that large motor, outdoor, rough and tumble play. Girls like to rough and tumble too, but they do it a lot less. And parents, adults, teachers, it makes them a little nervous. Now, I will tell you that healthy rough and tumble play by those experts like Anthony Pellegrini at the University of Minnesota has written brilliantly on this topic. This is the essential universal play of little boys everywhere. There is no culture, known to man or woman, where little boys don't engage in far more rough and tumble play. And it involves a lot of mock fighting, shouting, sound effects, increasingly in the United States and maybe in Western Europe, maybe in Sweden, where they're trying to eliminate gender in some of their schools. In the United States, there's a failure to distinguish between rough and tumble play and violence. And so little boys who are just innocently playing cops and robbers or running around, the teacher thinks it's violent. Now, in violence, kids part as enemies. There are tears, there's unhappiness. It's not a cheerful event. Rough and tumble play, the boys can hardly repress their joy. It's joyful, it's wild. But increasingly in our schools, there are schools that have no recess. Now, we don't have lobbying groups for little boys, so no one does a disparate impact study and says, you eliminate recess. By the way, speaking as a girl, a former girl, I loved recess. But for boys, it has a much more severe impact for most little boys because that's their way of playing. And it seems to me what we should be doing is meeting boys halfway. I don't say that we have to, people say, oh, Christina Hoff Sommers says, let boys be boys, and that's so horrible, because they associate being a boy with being violent and antisocial. Well, first of all, that's not true. That's not fair. It's a very small percentage of boys who are violent and antisocial. Most of them are rough and tumblers. They're not all of them, but most of them. And so what I say is, yes, you have to civilize little boys. You have to turn them into gentlemen. If a society fails to socialize little boys, they have very unpleasant ways of making themselves noticed. So there's no question that we have to put efforts to open their hearts and make them kind and good individuals, but that doesn't mean trying to turn them into girls. Yet at Wellesley College, at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, you have these gender experts, and what are their ideas? Try to find ways to get boys to calm down, and they had a whole project to get them to play with dolls. And the idea was that if boys would play with dolls, they would become calmer, gentler, and maybe they would help take care of babies later on. We had to wean them away from that rough and tumble activity. It just didn't work. It creates havoc in the classroom. If you try to get 5-year-old, 6-year-old boys, I mean, they'll play with them, but then they can use them, At Wellesley, I saw this professor had a tub of bubbles, and he said, oh, well, if you make it into a water game, the boys will like it. Yes, but the teacher said they turned the dolls into torpedoes. And it's not going to work. And why do this? And I feel that we are increasingly making little boys feel ashamed of who they are. In many classrooms, as a colleague of mine has said, increasingly elementary schools, junior high schools, and even high schools are run by women for girls. Boys are there on sufferance. And as I said, they're winning all the prizes, and the boys, increasingly, we have dropout rates and boys not keeping up, boys not thinking of school a place where they belong. How can we do that?